10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Good luck, studio.
Oh, it's just what you've been waiting for, dears. Another episode of the Shy Life podcast coming right up.
Oh, it's the Shy Life podcast.
All I wanted was a pie, and then I hatched out of an egg.
Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record.
It's the quiet ones you've got to watch, you know.
Is it metaphorical? Is it deep? Is it deep?
Boy, he's not all that shy, is right.
Blimey, Governor, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Excellent. 5, 4, 6, 5, 4, 6, 546.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Shy Life podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. How are you doing? Oh, I'm all right. Yes, gosh, it's quite an exciting episode this time, at least it is for me, because we've got a very special guest. Yes, a very special guest. Somebody who started out as a listener of the show, who has become a collaborator, and, I see a great future ahead of us in terms of collaborations, and it's one of those nice times where you get to meet somebody who you've got a lot in common with, and who you never knew before the days of podcasting. So it does happen now and again, and it's always very lovely when it does happen. So anyway, look, let's run that theme music. When we come back, we'll speak to our special guest, but I'm not going to reveal who it is quite yet. I know the regulars want to know. I'm going to tease them for a bit. Have a listen. Run that theme music.
Darling, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Yes, but it's a positive statement. A highlight, the Shy Life.
You won't find a cast of characters like this everywhere.
Hello, Paul.
I'll go anywhere for a potato.
Delicious.
Hello, campers. How are you?
You quite like a big fan, don't you, Paul?
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh, I hope he hasn't found out my secret. Maybe he has.
If you thought that was bad, just listen to this.
Oh, I can't wait for it to begin.
It's the Shy Life podcast.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm strangely drawn to Uncle John's ankles as well.
Has the Shy Life podcast slowed down? I don't think so.
It's all gooey and juicy and yum.
Has anyone seen my hot sausage? Come on, Paul. You got to tell us who it is. Who is this special guest of yours? Well, he's a very special guest, that's who. No, Paul, that's not an answer. That's just you teasing us. We want to know. Who is it? Is it Henry VIII, Paul? No, Comedy, it's not Henry VIII. Why would you say that? Well, didn't Lisa speak to Henry VIII recently? Yes, that's right. Lisa did hop around in time quite recently, and I think Henry VIII is one of the people that she spoke to, but only briefly, and I don't think he was up for being on the podcast. Are you sure, Paul? It might be quite interesting to get some historical figures. Royalty, no less. Yeah, royalty, no less. And dead royalty as well. Oh, yes, that sounds quite appropriate for this show. Really? Yes, Uncle John, you're going to make a comment like that? I am. I just have. Yes. Okay. Well, it's not Henry VIII, and neither is it any dead royals or any dead anybody. You do come up with the strangest things, you two. Well, no, we were just trying to second guess you. You're trying to second guess me, were you? So, what do you think? Who do you think it is? Huh? Who do you think our special guest is? Is it what? Is it you? Is it? Let me move the recording device. Yes. Come on. Good boy. You're doing recording deals. You're doing recording. Yeah. Yes. There. Yes. So, Deals, who do you think it is? Yeah? You gonna guess? Some legendary cat that's dead about 500 years ago? Is that your guess? Oh dear. Now you're making fun of us, Paul. I'm not making fun of you. I just thought you could probably have suggested somebody who might be our special guest who was A, alive, and B, not historical or a member of the royal family. Why would Henry VIII be on the Shy Life podcast? I mean, I don't see any royals queuing up to be on this show. I don't think we'd want them, Paul. Also, they probably disapprove on your stance on the Jubilee. I don't have a stance on the Jubilee. Just not really into, that sort of thing. It wasn't the Jubilee as such. It'd be the same as if it was, a big party, for the Olympics or something. I mean, the Olympics are great, but they're not really for me, and I wouldn't attend a party for them. No, not even for free food, Paul. Look, if somebody was offering to take me to a party where there was free food, yeah, maybe I would. Yeah, I would have thought you would, Paul. I can't see you turning down free food. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm wondering, should we ask any of the other regulars, or are we going to get just as stupid responses? I wonder. Or you should ask the others, Paul. I should ask the others who they think the special guest is. Right, okay.
Is it Joan of Arc, Paul?
No, it's not Joan of Arc.
Oh, darling. Could it be Laurence Olivier?
No, Bettina, it's not Laurence Olivier.
Oh, I was wondering, is your special guest Picasso?
August, no, it's not Picasso.
Is your guest Buddy Holly?
Martin, no, it's not Buddy Holly.
Oh, my darling. Is your special guest Beethoven?
No, Tallulah. Not Beethoven either. I was wondering, why is the special guest Alexia Skorkatok? I'm sorry? Alexia Skorkatok? I don't even know who that is. They're a very famous phoenix. Are they? A very famous phoenix? Alive or dead? Oh, of course they're alive, Paul. I don't expect you to speak to a dead phoenix. Oh, well, just that it hasn't stopped any of the other regulars suggesting people that have been long departed. You obviously think you're very talented at doing interviews with people. Yeah, I'd have to be very talented, wouldn't I? Oh, dear. I was wondering if your special guest would be like a pie. A very big pie, a very tasty pie. Maybe with some mushrooms and some belly button fluff. No, Charlie, no, that isn't my guest. Dear. Well, you see, Paul, it wasn't just us who thought that your special guest might be, somebody very, very, important. My special guest is somebody important. Just important now, not important 500 years ago. Dear, oh dear, I wish I'd not even got you to start playing this game. Well, Paul, you're making it difficult for us, we make it difficult for you. Yes, I see that now, and I regret it. I very much regret it. Do you want me to tell you who the special guest is? And will you stop being sarcastic or whatever it is you're being? I thought we were being helpful, Paul. You weren't being helpful. No, not at all. Oh dear, oh dear. So who is the guest? Well, the guest is, it is somebody who you would have heard their name because they have been sending us music quite recently. Gilles knows who I'm talking about. What are your musical friends? Well, yes, a musical friend, a friend who's sending us music for the show. It's Muffley on Tour. Oh, Muffley on Tour, I know who that is. Yes, oh, exciting. Oh, yeah, he's a good chap. He's a good fellow. Yes, I've had a few words with him on Twitter myself. Yes, I know. That's why we're excited. Oh, very excited. Yes, very excited. And before we speak to him, I thought now would be a good time to debut one of his new pieces. He's working on some music to go on some videos for a trip he's making very soon. And he's allowed us to play some of it. I think this one is called Flight 1 anyway. All right, Flight 1. Is it about an airplane? I don't know. I don't think so. It's just called Flight. It's just called Flight 1. And yeah, we should listen to it now. Oh yes, marvellous. Let's do that. Let's listen to it. Here's some new music from Muffley on Tour. enjoyed that very much. I always enjoy Muffley on Tour's music. Yes, well, I heard Bettina playing it in the background the other day. So his influence is spreading, isn't it, Dales? Dales has got pre-orders on his new album of tunes, haven't you, Dales? Yeah, that's what you were telling me last night. So, yes. So when's he coming into the studio? Yes, when's he coming into the studio? I'm very much looking forward to meet him. Oh. What's that about? What's what about? That noise you're making. The ooh-ahs, you know. What's going on? When is he coming into the studio? Maybe he's not coming into the studio. But presumably you'll be speaking to him on the Skype or the Zoom. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he's not coming into the studio. He's not coming into the studio, no. No, it's a long way for him to come. He doesn't just live down the road. Oh, well, still, I get to say hello to him when you speak to him on Skype. Yeah, he's making them noises again. Paul, what's going on? This is the thing, guys. It's not to say you won't meet him at a future date. It's not to say that you won't be in the studio next time I talk to him on Skype. You're speaking like this has already happened. Yeah, he is, isn't he? I am, yeah. You see, it's just that it was a good time to talk. You know, this morning, quite early this morning, he had plans. He was just back from a run. Well, a coffee run. And it was just a good time to talk. But neither of you were awake at the time. We weren't awake. You should have told me. Yeah, well, it was Sunday morning. So, you know, potentially, you might have wanted to sleep in. Oh, so we missed him. Yes, we had a little chat for an hour on earlier this morning. So, yes, you've missed him. Oh, well, that's most disappointing. Oh, for goodness sake, Cromitty. This is the first time he's been on the show. Just made sense if it was just him and I. He's a big fan of you two. He's a big fan of all of you regulars. But, you know, sometimes you all take a bit of getting used to. Oh, charming. Thank you very much. No, that wasn't meant to be offensive. You know, it's just, you're quite a lot, Yeti Uncle John. Oh dear. Yes, you are, Yeti Uncle John, you're quite a lot. But what about me? Am I quite a lot? Not as much as Yeti Uncle John. Look, anyway, it's all done and dusted now. I think we should just play the chat. We talk about all sorts of things. From Doctor Who to, I don't know, all sorts of things. I think the listeners will enjoy listening to it. Yes, well, I guess we'll sit here and listen as well. Yeah, as we couldn't be involved. Oh dear. Listeners, here's my chat with Muffley on Tour, which we recorded earlier this morning when the other two were still asleep. Even Dealey was still asleep. Weren't you, Dales? Yeah. We had our cameras on. You could have said hello. Oh, Dealey could have said hello, but we couldn't. Oh, stop stirring, Yeti Uncle John. Just stop stirring. Listeners, please have a listen. Thank you.
So yes, good morning, and here we are in Leeds, or Northwest Leeds, and it's been a relatively quiet weekend. I mean, the week has been busy for all sorts of reasons, but finally taking Sunday to relax. But no, because it's the first time we've actually spoken together face to face. Obviously, we communicate a lot online anyway. But I was going to actually ask you some classic questions. Which are obviously sort of the kind of thing that we're always like sort of talking about. So top 3 Doctor Who's as of now, in terms of actual doctors. I mean, mine would be Baker, Troughton, then Pertwee. Mm-hmm. Pertwee used to be second, but like he dropped a bit for various reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, I did have different favourite doctors when I was younger, but I think I did this recently on Twitter. Nobody asked me to. I just did. I just do very much like Peter Davison, so I do like the Fifth Doctor because he's my era, and
because you're 74, I'm 73.
I'm 73. I'm 73, but later in the year.
Oh, tail end of 73. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, you've got older brothers, is that right?
Younger brother.
Oh, was it? Yeah. Because the thing is, I've got an older brother, so he would have been my brother 6 years older. So my brother would have been Pertwee Baker, whereas I was more Baker Davison. Yeah. As I said, sort of, I've still got a soft spot for Davison, but like, I think just for various reasons, things start to go off the boil.
What the most annoying thing for me was that because it was on during the week, it was during the time when I was being forced to go to Cub Scouts, which I didn't like anyway. But I can't remember which season it was that clashed with. I think it was Thursday's Cubs. But I do remember a friend at school recording an episode of A Planet of Fire on audio because that was the only way that I could even get a chance of hearing it because I was at Cubs.
Yeah. It's interesting because obviously when things started getting re-released on video and DVD, the memories start flooding back to you. So like I have a distinct memory of being at my friend Owen Brown's house and watching the last episode of The Visitation when the sonic screwdriver gets dropped in the fire in Pudding Lane. I can remember watching that and the credits rolling. It's like, oh, right, I better go home now for my tea. And then also, I think the whole thing with Adric. The thing with Adric was, I'm not sort of going to go into that, oh, he was annoying, da-da-da-da, and, the whole Wesley Will Wheaton thing as well, but more it's that he looked very much like one of my brother's friends. So he just always reminded my brother's friend, Adrian Stevenson, so there you go.
I don't think I found him, we won't go into too much, but my main comment would be, I didn't find him as irritating because he was still older than I was at the time, so he didn't feel like a brat because he was an older brother character. So, but I can see how some of my friends like Nick and people like that, perhaps that 5 years older than us, would be more like irritating. But I'm not really sure. That's how they do feel.
So I've just should say for everyone that my wife's French, so like I kind of have this thing where like she's getting introduced to lots of sort of British programs and things. So like she's aware of Doctor Who, but for her, she's more aware of Doctor Who being David Tennant, and that's her Doctor Who. That's like that's her thing. And then when you sort of say, there was this guy called Tom Baker, and he was like this eccentric bohemian, and he was just like very otherworldly and stuff. And then there's this other guy, William Hartnell, and this other one is like going down this whole kind of sort of rabbit hole. And then just the thing is, we've actually got French TV. We're a two dish household here, officially, legally a 2-dish household. No naughty streaming or anything. And we tend to watch more French TV. I don't tend to watch. I think Martin Holmes has mentioned this. He doesn't tend to watch much British current TV anymore because he just finds it so annoying. And I'm very much with that. We tend to watch more French TV because even like the game shows are more family orientated and fun and not cynical. And it's not like sort of, let's laugh at the stupid person or laugh at the person who's, a bit thick or whatever. It's more sort of inclusive. Although it was a bit bizarre. We had some friends over yesterday lunchtime because we're trying to sort out a cat feeding rota for Monroe when we go away. And we were just watching this sort of classic sort of family game show. And for some reason, they had like this, it's a sports round. And they had like a picture round. And it was something like you had to sort of say, which Olympics was this in terms of, was it the Winter Olympics and such every year and the sort of Summer Olympics from 1984? The picture of the Winter Olympics from one year was basically this bloke with his trousers down with his arse sticking out. And it's just it's like sort of Saturday lunchtime on French TV. It's just like, literally ooh la la, as they say. And French people do actually say ooh la la. But there is a distinction. There's ooh la la, which is like, wow, oh dear, or my goodness, or oh la la, which is like, oh crap, you know, so like, so yeah, you get to pick up these different sort of things. But French TV, my wife and her sister especially grew up watching the Avengers on French TV, which I'll get the translation slightly wrong, but Chapeau Melon en Botte de Cour, whatever it's called. So they were big fans of that. So from time to time, we will be watching the Avengers in French. So that's still got quite heavy rotation. And they still seem quite, and I know going back to Martin again, sort of doff the cap to Martin and his amazing vision on sound stuff. They still seem very fond of the Tara episodes, which I am as well, because I get to a point with the Mrs. Peel ones. It's just like, oh yeah, enough now, please. And I like the Tara ones because they go a bit weirder and a bit darker in places. So yeah, very much a fan of that.
They get a bit formulaic towards the end of Mrs. Peel. Like I've said this before, you can see, you know, you come into an episode and you can tell exactly what stage. If you didn't know when it started, you're like, oh, we're about 3/4 of the way through because they're doing this. They're about to do this sort of thing.
And like, oh, here's a clue. Let's go to the umbrella shop, or let's go to the stilt shop, or let's go to the toy shop, and like all that kind of stuff. So, so yeah, we watch a lot of French TV. Another bizarre one is my wife loves watching David Suchet and Poirot. That's like our go-to kind of thing. Like, oh, what should we do? Oh, no. Tell you what, let's stick a Poirot on. And she loves watching Poirot, and just thinks, as we all do, David Suchet is amazing, definitive Poirot, and all the rest of it. What is strange is that they have Poirot on French TV, and obviously it's dubbed in French. So you have to sort of get your head around that, which is a bit of a funny one. So that's good to watch. That's very good to watch. And so in terms of sort of my TV viewing, I did go through, I think I was talking to Simon Hart about this a while back. Hello, Simon, if you're listening. I did the classic thing where I went through a spell where I've currently got BritBox, and I went through like a real Doctor Who marathon. And I was doing quite well. I was like really powering through it. And then for whatever reason, I've just got to the Key to Time, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I think I need a bit of a breather now. Yeah, I think it was Underworld that broke it for me, because obviously zero budget left, and like, yeah. So yeah, I really
watch Key to Time again. That I mean, in itself, I enjoy it, but the few stories leading up to it, like Underworld, I can understand, especially if you've gone that far.
Yeah. So I don't think we're really watching much at the moment. I mean, we've just sort of been busy doing sort of other bits and pieces. I mean, I've had quite a lot. I mean, sort of work-wise, sort of it's kind of our busy time of year, and so yeah, I've sort of been doing that. I work for the NHS, but I work in an office in Leeds, and it's to do with social care and stuff. And as you can imagine, the last 2 years, that has had a huge impact on social care, and we're sort of pretty busy, and we're sort of going back into the office, but now it is very much this kind of hybrid way of working, which works well for me, because it enables you to sort of avoid the sort of stress of commuting. I mean, I grew up in Cambridge, or a village just outside Cambridge, so we're kind of that. We've both got that sort of. You've got your Salisbury kind of thing going on. I've got the Cambridge thing going on. And the thing is definite sort of parallels. And I think I said to you before that if we'd have grown up together, we'd have been sort of, you know, doing silly stuff in the playground together, blah, 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 and sort of all the rest of it. And then
dragged into some part for a start.
Absolutely, yeah. And then lots of sort of boozy, geeky conversations in nice, cozy pubs as well, and all that kind of thing. But no, after I finished uni, for a while, quite a while, I was commuting from Cambridge to London. And then a few years later, I bought a house outside Cambridge and just used to spend my whole life on trains. And it's like spending 3-4 hours a day just seems like really strange now. Could just never go back to it. So this whole hybrid working thing, which is kind of, it was on the cards for us anyway, because we've moved to a new office and haven't got enough desks, because they've sort of reduced costs, and so they'd sort of been a bit of forward thinking. But like, one of the silver linings of what's happened over the last 2 years is this hybrid working. So like on Friday, I was busy doing something, and then I decided, right, it's 3 o'clock. I'm going to have a break, and I'm going to cut the grass, and I'm going to do it now before it rains. Otherwise, it would never get done. So yeah, and you can't sort of really just pop out the office and cut the grass. So there we go. So I went a bit off tangent there for the doctor. So that was the thing about. So the other question I was going to ask you, and especially with, I guess, because I'm thinking about what books to take away on holiday. What are you reading at the moment? What several things are you reading at the moment?
Well, just remind myself, I mainly read on my phone, on my Kindle app, partly because of my fingers are sometimes a bit like with my various ailments. It's not always easy to hold books for a long time. So I can tell you what I'm reading. I've started Good Pop, Bad Pop, which is by Jarvis Cocker, and that's about him. This is factual. This is him going through his like a loft, and because he's a hoarder, and all the strange things he's found, like bars of Curzon soap from 1988, because they changed the logo on it, and he loved the logo and he didn't want to get. I mean, it actually quite reassuring, because it makes me think, oh yeah, I get accused of being a hoarder, but really nothing like this at all. So not bits of soap. So I'm reading that. I'm reading a book by Bentley Little, who is a horror writer who I'd never heard of, but Stephen King recommended him. It's called The Haunted. That's quite good, although I'm a little bit sort of spooky house. That's just been done so much. But I'm also reading a book called The Other Emily by Dinar Koontz, and who I hadn't read for about 25 years or something. I remember a friend of mine around the time of doing Southern Park recommending Dinar Koontz, so I thought I'll just kind of try one of his more recent ones. Then I'm reading the new David Sedaris book, which is called Happy Go Lucky.
I've not read any David Sedaris for ages, actually. That was one of those classic things, someone recommends it to you.
Yeah.
And you think, who's this person? And then you read it, it's like, oh, wow, yeah. I think it was at Me Talk Pretty one day was like the classic one.
I think that was the first one I read as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess with me, I've been reading quite a lot of travel books because we're going away, even though obviously we can go online and sort of read things. I've been sort of reading quite a lot of travel books, and I think I'm trying to think what. I think the last book I read was this Beatles book by Craig Brown, but I didn't really enjoy it because it was a bit cynical and poorly researched as well. It was very much, Yoko Ono is a bit of a witch, ha 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 kind of thing, and like sort of out of pure determination, I got to the end of it. So, but I don't know if this is controversial. I'm not one of these people these days that just buys loads and loads of books and has a book pile. It's one of my, and I don't want to get sort of, burned to the stake for this. I'm not one of these people that post a picture of like, oh, here's my book reading pile. I've got loads of books to read, because I always want to say, well, stop posting pictures and actually read some. It's just like,
I mean, it's just kind of got to the stage where I've got so many books in the house that it's kind of, and I've been buying a few things digital, so
sure.
Kind of stuck to my phone, and also I read a chapter and then I move on to another one. I think that's partly the short attention span that's developed.
Sure. Well, I think what happened with me is I used to accumulate a load of stuff. I was in sort of full-on hoarding mode, and I think when our dad died back in, was it 2013 now, and we had to clear his house out, and literally we were sort of crawling through the loft and like sort of having to sort of bend ourselves backwards to sort of navigate our way through the loft. I kind of made a mental note to myself, try and sort of, keep sort of, not the clutter, but the sort of the volume of stuff down. And I think when I met Angelique's much more of a minimalist person. So like, if you see our sort of downstairs living room, it's kind of, dare I say, it feels a bit Mediterranean because it's just white walls. There's a TV on the wall and nothing. It's just sofas. So not quite the same weather as the Mediterranean, but So like this room's still got books and things, and then we've got a room downstairs with books. But
I can't show you very well. I can't it's very, and also the listeners can't see anyway. But
indeed,
that's a lot. That's probably what's left of my CD collection, which is a massive pile.
Sure.
But I don't really ever listen to those, but I don't want to get rid of them because I'm sure there's lots of things on there that aren't even on streaming services.
I've got that thing where I put a lot of my music onto my iTunes, and for whatever reason, be it kind of storage issues with old phones or whatever, or I don't know why, or just like sort of bad memories for whatever reason, I deleted stuff. And now I think, I want to listen to such and such. It's like, it's not. And what I need to do is go back in the loft to like the boxes of CDs and like sort of retrieve them and like reload them. So that's on the list for some point, but I'm not sure when. So
again, now I can sort of access like on my music plan or whatever, like virtually every album that they've got available. But it's just like a panic of I can't. Where do I start? Like you download like all of the albums of a band you've not really listened to, but then when you actually get around to listening to it, and so at the moment I'm just focusing on my little playlists that I do. So it's very difficult to listen to a whole album. And then also I was, when I was out the other day, I was listening to music and I thought, I got loads of podcasts I need to catch up with. So I went over to podcast for a bit, and then I was like, oh, but I kind of like listen to music now. It's like, oh, okay.
So on that note, which podcasts, you don't have to mention all of them, and I know there'll be the sort of, shall we say, the usual suspects, obviously the ones that of course we listen to, but sort of which ones have sort of grabbed your attention of late? I've got to look at my phone to see which ones I've been listening to.
Well, I mean, aside from all the ones that I'm on, like Vision on Sound,
of course,
and around the archives, I don't listen to as much as I'd like to because of not commuting anymore. But some of them, it's like The Hysteria Continues, which is the Slasher podcast that first got me into podcasts like 10, 12 years ago. I still try. I mean, I've still got things downloading on my phone, but it's, I listen to a Neighbours Rewatch podcast because it's a comedy podcast as well, so it's always fun. But obviously things are a bit sad in that sort of area.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's obviously things like the Smellcast, who's sort of again, but I'm on that sometimes as well. So it's different. It's time you've sort of listened to the ones that involve people you know and things. That there's less time, and I have dropped quite a few. Or there's ones where I kind of downloaded quite a lot of episodes, and I know I like there's one with Sophie Ellis-Bextor talking to lots of people, and she's really, but again, the episodes keep coming, and I don't get a chance to. Trying to find a way of listening to podcasts or get it into my routine, listening to podcasts when I'm not commuting, like sort of finding their websites and listening to it directly off the website, rather than having to be out and about.
I guess for me, I tend to listen to podcasts more, say, if I'm out in the local park, or when I am in the office, because one thing I did find is that when people started going back into the office, they've been so used to, like, let's say, talking like this in a room on their own, they sort of didn't have the sort of volume control, and so you just had all these people blaring into their sort of microphones on their headsets in the office. So like podcasts have been a real saviour for that. I think in the sort of, not exactly geeky, but let's say sort of entertainment sector, I think sort of I really like the Irish guys that do the Nothing Is Real podcast, because I think their enthusiasm and love just really comes over, and it's quite funny as well. So I tend to sort of always look forward to that one. And then another one which I've got into fairly recently, my background is my family was from Manchester, and as long as I can remember, we were always going on holidays, trips back to Manchester, which would be combined with trips to Lake District. So I've been going to Lake District all my life, especially Keswick. And one good thing about living in Leeds is it's not too far away. And so we try and get up sort of 2-3 times a year. But, safe to say I'm not as young as I used to be. So I'm not one of these people who's literally going to sort of, sprint up a load of fells and back down again and drink 10 pints. You know, things are definitely more leisurely these days. But there's a good podcast I listen to called the Wainwright Ramblers, and it's just 3 guys. I think they're in their early 30s. And the great thing about it is that it's not them saying, oh, you know, I did all this stuff and I'm amazing or great. What's great is they sort of talk about sort of like kind of like the philosophy of walking and sort of like, you know, what you experience and just, you know, that thing, let's say if you're walking and you're by a lake or a tarn and you can just stop and just appreciate just the sound of the water lapping away and things like that. So they're sort of really nice guys, and they've recently did a challenge where they walked from Ambleside to Keswick, which as the crow flies is probably, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 miles. But obviously they did it over a load of Wainwright Hills and stuff. And the good thing about it wasn't like, oh yeah, we sped through it and we were great and we were amazing. It was like the challenges they faced and like sort of, you know, sort of when they were like, oh, mentally I was really struggling here and like, sort of, I just wanted to give up and this, that and the other. So it's all that kind of thing. So it sort of it has more of a human side to it. Yeah.
From the point of view of producing a podcast, I really like sort of, I haven't done it so much the last couple of years, but taking the podcast on trips with me. But then because perhaps say back in the Sutton Park days or when I was even doing my poetry videos in the early teens, obviously the views speak for themselves. You go to Venice and you can see it. So doing the podcast, say in Venice, it's sort of slightly anxiety-inducing. Of how am I going to put some Venice into this when it's when you're having, so you're listening for like, oh, is that the sound of a church bell, or is that something that's very Venice? And so I kind of doing a podcast while you're walking. I suppose if you've got other people to interact with as well, and you've got this, you know, you've got the river and you've got the sort of things, but it is a completely different challenge trying to represent, you know, being out and about. And
that brings me on to something we've sort of discussed already. That yes, we are going away this summer, so we're going back to France to see my wife's family, but then we're off to Singapore and Phuket in Thailand. And my plan is that I'm going to be just sending you little sort of sound bites of snippets of sort of things, sort of very brief, just to sort of be able to sort of describe where I am and what I'm doing. Because, it's after obviously like the last 2.5 years, basically being in this country, just being able to experience other places and other cultures is going to be good. So I will be sending you some of those. And then also I bought myself a new Osmo gimbal, which historically what I've done is I've done little YouTube videos, not proper, you know, bells and whistles stuff. They tend to be like 2-3 minutes. And I tend to sort of do these little videos just of sort of things that I'm doing, places I've been and stuff. So I'll be loading some of those up and obviously linking on my Twitter and what have you. But that's one of the reasons I've had a bit of a flurry on the on the music front, because what I've done sort of in the past is I thought, oh, right, I need a soundtrack to this. And my go-to place in the past has been the non-copyright sounds channel on YouTube, which is great. It's great, and I use a lot. But sometimes can get a bit generic because it's like, here's another laid-back hip-hop track, with some scratchy vinyl and this, that, and the other. And it's kind of like, well, I could cut out the middleman and just make my own. So I guess that's sort of prompted me to sort of do some recently. So that'll make it easier for editing, that I don't have to refer to some other people's music.
It must be because listeners, when I'm sent some of your music, it's I like to sort of like spotlight it as, oh, this is a new piece. But then after that, it's kind of all it'll turn up again in many different ways, and it must for you it must be like, oh, Bettina's listening to one of my tracks in the background in this episode.
Of course. And that, in some respects, I kind of like the repeats rather than, as you say, being a grand, here's a new piece of music. It's great. It's great when it's like sort of there, sort of used like sort of in the background or used to like add flavour to a certain scene or whatever. And like, that's what I really enjoy very much.
Yeah, I try to sort of have either bits of music or bits of stuff in my head. It's kind of I like so you've got like the little crickets that sometimes it has in his, or you have down in Cuthbert you have that bit that sound effect I stole from The Man with the White Coat.
As did Obi-Wan Kenobi, as we found out.
Yes. Yeah. Or Bettina tends to have some music playing when she's. It all gets a bit abstract, and it's not it's meant to give a rather than being completely accurate. It's difficult to know what to do when you're having phone calls as well. Do you make it? Do you put an effect on the voice? Sometimes I used to, and now I'm kind of like, oh, it doesn't matter. If somebody was, if we took our earphones out and somebody heard us talking in another room, they wouldn't necessarily immediately realise you weren't in the room. They'd just hear, because things like Skype and phone calls, if you don't, not always that obvious, because there's that distortion anymore. So. It seems a bit silly to deliberately put distortion on if you don't need to. Although I've gone through different stages. I've gone through different stages of doing it and not doing it.
I know this is a thing. Like I think with recording, sometimes there is the temptation just to throw in the kitchen sink and like sort of say if you're doing a music track, you think, oh, I'm going to put a sequencer on it, and then there's a drum track, but I'm going to put another drum track on it, and then I'm going to put a percussion on it as well, and like sort of, and then you realise that like it's not really adding to it; it's kind of detracting from the original idea. So yeah.
When I listened back to older episodes of the show, there wasn't as a Skype recording device originally, and so I'd just have no earphones in, and I'd record on my phone, so Toppie and I don't sound like we're in the same room, really. And then other people suggested, like you can record your side of the call, and they can record their side of the call, and you can put it together as two tracks. So that's sort of theoretically how we do Chatterbox. But then sometimes you then end up with 4 different background noises, or like Troby is well known for his gurgling stomach. So you suddenly have a gurgling noise, which you don't really want.
As well as his innuendo, that is as well. Yes. I was driving in the car earlier, and I can't remember exactly which bit it was, but he said one of his classics, and I had to sort of refocus, shall I say, whilst I was driving. Yeah.
Oh dear. How is
So another thing I was going to ask, because this is something that sort of is always kind of floating around, and I guess this is something that sort of is always sort of there for the quote unquote creatives, and this is applying to sort of YouTubers as well as podcasters and stuff, is I suppose it's like what's the motivation for it, I guess. I think what I'm coming to is there are certain people that I follow who, their content's fine and stuff, but then they get into that thing where they complain that, oh, nobody's listening to me and it's all da-da-da-da. But then again, these are people who don't engage. What I would say about, shall we say, the family with Andrew, Lisa and Martin and all the folks, is that sort of, if you message them or comment on them, they always say, oh, thank you very much, da-da-da. But there's other people out there, if you're not sort of Andrew Sweet or God knows who else, someone in the media jar, darling, they can have a habit of ignoring you. And you kind of think, well, stop whinging about sort of, being sort of rich and successful and all the rest of it, and try and just remember to keep your feet on the ground a bit. So
there are people who are easier to talk to than others. When I first, the early episodes of the podcast, I did try and contact other podcasters who I'd listened to, and some of them were really helpful and engaged, and some didn't at all, and some who did did the once, but when you went back for a second go, less. So yeah, it's not always easy.
Very much so. Yeah, because it's because you get the thing quite often these days. I mean, I can't remember how many people I follow on YouTube now, how many subscriptions I've got on YouTube. Probably about, let's say, 30 or 40. And in terms of podcasts, probably about 20. And pretty much most of them have got like a Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee or whatever it's called. And I think for me, as a punter, shall I say, it can just sort of be that, just, you know, that little bit of interaction, that sort of, you know, the fact they're sort of, you know, sort of listening to you and they're sort of, you know, grateful for your input and stuff, which can think, oh, you know what, I will buy them a coffee, or I will buy their book, or this, that, and the other. And as I say, the great thing about you and the rest of the guys in your sort of family is that you're all very nice and all very lovely and friendly and accommodating, which has been fantastic. So yes, I'm just bigging you up there.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's because I started out as a listener, and I remember when I first heard the Smellcast, I was kind of like, I kind of need to be friends with this guy, but how do I get to be friends with this guy?
Of course, yeah.
Because he's kind of doing all the stuff that I would either like to do or have done in Sutton Park years ago, or and I think I said to him once, I think I found something where he'd said he was encouraging people to write in, or if they wanted to be characters, or but I think it was quite an old email at the time, and he may not have seen it immediately, so I had to have a kind of second go and kind of go, hello.
And it's funny you mentioned Toppy, because he is great. He's just always good value when he's like sort of on your podcast. And for listeners that haven't heard it, the dentist episode is just fantastic. It's just, and that was all improvised. Am I correct? Yeah. And I think it sounds like, I don't want to say it sounded like it's scripted, because that makes it sound like it was a bit forced or a bit planned. But it just sounds so natural. But it's just like genuinely funny, and you can hear you two just sparking off each other, and it's just wonderful. It's just really, really nice. Yeah.
There's an episode that's not even released yet, where coming up, where, because in the Smellcast, Toppy has been doing the Boppity Hop race, which is something that I and a lot of my characters came over and watched him stuff. Anyway, so further down the line, I'm supposed to be doing exercising with him, because he's now the expert in exercising, and this all links in with the yoga vampires, of course. And but of course, Paul is more interested in posing for selfies for Instagram. But when I was improvising, I was holding my hand out like I was holding a phone in my hand and like posing. And I was thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I posing with my hand? But I was. But talking about something that sounded scripted but wasn't, in the recent Chatterbox, or time of recording recent, the scene that Troby and Lisa recorded, where she ends up going back in time, that was just, for 10 minutes, that was just perfect. I couldn't believe that. Well, I didn't know what was coming when they said, I said, could you do something? Because I felt a bit bad that we weren't, it was kind of, we kind of needed to record with Toppy and Lisa, but we couldn't do both. So I sort of said could you perhaps do something so you're in it? And and so they did, but I wasn't expecting special effects, and it sounded like it was done in one take. And
you asked Troby for an innuendo, and he gave you one. Sorry, had to get that in. So no, I nearly said on Twitter earlier, when I said I nearly had a moment when I was driving, and I was tempted, but I had to remember sort of certain people that followed me maybe aren't on our wavelength, etc., etc. I nearly was going to say, I was driving at one point, I nearly had to pull off, but I thought, yeah, I'm not sure if you'll keep that in, but there we go. Yeah, so no, it's great, and it's great being able to chat and things. And in terms of your plans for the summer, so you live in West London, is that correct?
So, no, I sort of live more towards Woking, Guildford way. So I'm sort of out of town, really. So I don't really even consider myself a sort of Wimbledon side of London. So what side of London's that? But yeah, I'm 40 minutes from Waterloo, so we're our own little place out here. Not that there's much here. But.
The first house I bought was in a town called Royston, which is about 15 miles south of Cambridge, and considerably cheaper. It was back in the day. But I used to do very much the Reggie Perrin commuting thing, badger 8 the signal box excuse kind of thing. But the thing is, I had to get the train into King's Cross and then get the Northern Line from King's Cross down to the Elephant and Castle. So, yeah, that was always a bit of a trek. And what's weird with the Elephant and Castle is when I first started work for the Department of Health in 1996, it was very much, you had the classic sort of shopping centre and all the rest of it. And as an area, it was a bit run down and stuff. Then they started doing a few bits up. And I think I can remember you could pick up like an apartment for like 120,000 or something, which is just like unbelievable now. And now they've basically just flattened the whole thing and just gentrifying the whole lot, which is just like really strange to me. I do that thing when I go back to London, which isn't all the time now. And it's like, oh, that's changed. Well, that's changed. Oh, that's not like that anymore and stuff. Then again, I do that when I go back to Cambridge as well. It's like I said, oh, that's different.
I've got family in Cambridge, but we don't see them much. I haven't been to Cambridge, I don't think, since the early noughties, when Nick and I went and stayed in Cambridge to do something that kind of was supposed to be taken over from Sutton Park that never really got edited in the end. We recorded quite a few episodes, but it was like scripted and everything. And we went and did a fight sequence in Ely.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've really been back since then. But.
You didn't venture to 6 Mile Bottom then? No.
No, if I'd known about it, I would have.
Oh, yeah, 6 Mile Bottom, yeah. Sorry. Oh, that's setting me off now. I don't tend to go back to Cambridge that often. It tends to be probably twice a year nowadays. So, like, we are often in France at Christmas time. So I tend to go sort of early December to see my brother and catch up with a few people. And then maybe once in the summer, because both mine and my brother's birthdays are in July. So don't go as much as you used to. So, it's always sort of a sort of funny feeling going back now. And obviously a lot of people I know have moved away from there. So like I had my stag do in Cambridge back in 2019.
Yeah.
Which was, well, first of all, it was very genteel because I'm far too old for that kind of sort of a rock and roll lifestyle anymore. And there was no sort of crazy shenanigans at all. It was very much, let's go to another cozy backstreet pub and play some board games, pretty much. Yeah.
I went to a German beer cellar in Old Street or something like that. So that was more sort of about big 2-pint things of beer, but obviously
Steins.
Yeah, Steins. But you didn't drink that many of them because I think when I had mine also it was early in the year and it started to snow quite heavily whilst it was happening. So people started to think, I have to kind of stop heading home in case we can't get home. So.
Of course, yeah. And it's interesting because when we go to France, the drinking culture is so much different. I mean, the best way of describing it is to say they don't have Wetherspoons in France. That's the quick way of putting it. Yeah. Drinking is very much seen more as they would call it, an aperitif. It's something you would do before a meal. I mean, the meal might be very boozy himself, a nice long 2-3 hour long lunch and all the rest of it. But it's not so much that people going to the pub just for the sake of going to the pub and getting absolutely legless. So, it's very much more laid back, And where my wife's family is in a town called La Senza-Mer, and she's in a district of it called Les Iblettes, which is lovely. It's sort of right on the beach, and it's near to the closest big city is Toulon. And Toulon is between Nice and Marseille. But it's very nice. It's very nice. She managed to get away at Easter, but I was saving some of my annual leave. And she managed to get away successfully as well, because at Easter she flew from Leeds Bradford Airport, which has been in the news quite a bit recently, and she'd got the fast track. So once we realised that the big queue wasn't the queue that we needed necessarily, because it was just the normal queue, shall we say, for the normal security, because she had to go and check in at the KLM desk. It was pretty straightforward, but we're kind of sort of hoping that sort of things are a bit smoother for when we fly in 6 weeks' time. But yeah, we'll see.
We did do an episode from Marseille, about 2018 or something like that.
Oh, right. Okay.
And it was with Callum and I went for his birthday. I think we went by train, so we went to Paris, and then we connected, made the connection, and then did go down to Marseille.
Yeah. Can you remember? Is it Lyon that you connected in? So you go all the way down to Lyon, then maybe change trains in Lyon. I can't remember.
We were able to go directly from Paris.
Oh, it was direct. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And I remember we went into a tunnel, and when you came out the other side of the tunnel, suddenly it looked very Mediterranean as you got closer to Marseille.
Yeah, it's a lovely train route along the coast there. It's just absolutely lovely with the sea and everything. It's very nice indeed.
Did some other some of the day trips as well. We went on a boat a couple of times. But then it was kind of like, how can I represent this on the podcast? So
yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, I'll try and do a few little bits and pieces in France. So yes, I'll try and explain sort of where we are. So there will probably be like, oh, here I am at another cafe drinking more coffee and eating more cakes. Yeah. So I can tell Yeti Uncle John all about the cakes I'm eating. So there you go.
Yeah, I like that. And because as you know, we weren't that into the Jubilee, or we weren't that into sort of doing big street parties or anything like that. But Nick was, and I said to Nick, if you go to anything, can you record stuff? And I think he was doing it anyway, video-wise. So the other day he sent me a load of stuff that arrived, and I've just turned it into audio, and not necessarily to even use it in its context, but just it's nice to have, because I like to have sound effects, my own little library. It's nice to know that I've kind of got some sort of garden party sound effect, because we have a big garden party coming up later in the year, because it's Bettina's a significant birthday. So yeah, it'll be useful to have some garden party sound effect.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was Jubilee stuff going on here, but like in my street, there wasn't like a street party. I'd probably say about 40% of the houses had some flags and stuff, but there wasn't a real sort of overwhelming kind of desire to really sort of like celebrate it in full. But the weird thing is the Frenchies absolutely loved it. It was like there was coverage all over French TV. Maybe they they regret sort of like getting rid of their monarchy, so they have to borrow ours from time to time. But what it did sort of bring back memories of is the Silver Jubilee in 1977, which as a kid, as I would have been, 4 years old, was like huge. There was just like, from what it was just everywhere was just like flags and bunting and this, that, and the other, and there's things going on.
I don't really remember it enough, but I remember more like the 1981 royal wedding. More, I don't know. I don't know what I was doing. I was around. I don't know what I was up to. Obviously, I was a baby punk and I was too busy being anarchist.
Kicking against the system. Yeah. But no, I remember the Silver Jubilee and a lot of crepe paper. There was like sort of just crepe paper everywhere, like red, white, and blue crepe paper. So we didn't really sort of get actively involved. And ironically, when sort of Angelique was like, "Oh, we haven't got any flags," I tried looking for some and I couldn't get any. And sort of the last time we put a flag up, it was kind of a bit of a misfire, but also sort of funny. It was when it was the anniversary of VE Day, I think a few years ago, which I can't remember what year it would have been now. Would it have been 2019, I think? It would have been, and people were like putting flags up for VE Day. We didn't have a British flag, so we put our French flag up. Because we're kind of it's victory in Europe. It's, it's our way of saying thank you. But I'm sure some of the neighbours, especially the ones that probably partake of the Daily Mail, were like harumphing at us. So there's a bit of a sort of two fingers up to them, basically. So I mean, in some respects, it's kind of sitcom land where I am, because I'm sort of in the suburbs, and on my street there's a reasonable number of retired people. And so we had a load of building work done last year, and consequently, like, the front garden was literally a building site for quite a while. And it's only been like the last few months I've got round to sort of rectifying it. And like, if I'm working from home, like over lunchtime, maybe I'll go out and do some stuff. And like, was it the old Harry Enfield character? Like, you don't want to be doing like that. You want to do it like this. Oh, you don't want to hoe. You want to use like a proper fork for that. Turning it, and just like, and it's just like, yeah. So I've taken to actually wearing headphones when I'm gardening, so I don't have to listen to the neighbours' helpful hints anymore. So yeah. But back in the day when I wasn't so much of a keen gardener, and probably more when I was like sort of out more gallivanting and stuff, I could tell the neighbours, especially the ones with the net curtains, would get a bit sort of tetchy with me, because I think they thought I was letting the street down because I was too busy enjoying myself, rather than like, sort of tending to the weeds and sort of the sort of all the other sort of bits and pieces in the garden. But now I'm older. Yes, I am sort of starting to do the whole gardening thing. So there we go. So what have you got planned for today? Because I've got to head off and start sort of sort of basting. I better be careful how I say that. I'm going to start basting soon.
I shall probably be continuing to edit the next episode.
So how many have you got lined up at the moment? Because in the most recent episode, you said you got quite a lot in the can. Yeah,
probably up until September. I've probably got like 8 or 9 episodes a month already recorded to a certain extent. But I I'll shuffle things around, so we won't be waiting till September to hear this one.
Sure.
It's more the story. I have to keep an eye on the stories, because I don't want to get too far away. Otherwise, it'll be Summer Garden Party will be being broadcast in November or something.
Yeah. Or like that classic thing when you'd sort of like get to see the Neighbours Christmas episode in like sort of April or whatever it would be. Yeah. So would you be going to the Neighbours farewell tour actually?
In spirit, but I don't think. I don't think I'll get.
And on that note, are you off to see ABBA Voyage as well? Have you got tickets for
again? I'd like to at some stage, but I think. Well, we know with that it'll probably be around for a while. So,
From what I've read of it, it's very good. It's very good. But at the moment, and this thing that's sort of great a bit, I think it's the Prosecco and fancy dress crowd that are sort of like, sort of monopolising it at the moment, and sort of, as you said, I'd wait for things to die down. Yeah. So
by afternoon when nobody else is.
Indeed. I mentioned the Nothing Is Real podcast earlier, and I've been mulling the fact if Paul McCartney did another tour next year, whether it'd go. And again, it's that kind of like, maybe, but like the tickets are going to be horrendous, and you'll basically be viewing it from another postal code from where he's on the stage, and his voice isn't as great, and blah, 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 blah.
I got last year I got it quite into, or during lockdown, seeing things virtually anyway. Now I'm kind of, because my mobility can be a bit problematic. I saw, I think I saw Kylie doing a show, and I saw Lindsey Buckingham doing a show, and and I've seen a few can't think who now, like famous people talking on the stage with so and so, Jonah Lumley talking on the stage, and I've just bought that book I mentioned, the Jarvis Cocker book. He's doing a talk about it next month, and it's £25 to go and see him live, or it's £5 to watch it online. It's just too much hassle to go and see him.
Of course, yeah.
And that £5 sounds great, so I've got a ticket for that.
I've pretty much stopped going to the cinema. I mean, that was kind of a pre-COVID thing anyway. Much as I love going to the cinema and the full experience, I would just get so wound up by just people making noise, asking them out on their phones and stuff, and it just really detracted from the experience. Having said that, I might, because they've been re-releasing the Bonds, I might go and see Moonraker later this month, because that's going to be on the big screen. I'm not sure where they're up to at the moment. I might go and see that in the hope that the people who are seeing it are like sort of proper sort of like fans who are not going to sort of, you know, make loads of noise.
I was disappointed not to go and see The Time to Die. That what it's called?
No Time to Die, yeah.
No Time to Die, yeah. And because that came out around the time of my birthday, but that's when I think I probably had COVID and wasn't wasn't sure what was going on, so I never did. But I did see Scream 5 or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
That was
but yeah, another thing I could go on about is when I go to France and see films, which are, yeah. So like I think I saw some of the recent Star Wars films in France as well. So like that can be a bit of a challenge because my French is progressing, but it's not that amazing. So yeah. But no, there's an interesting thing you mentioned about sort of, yeah, it could just be easy to go and see things or just do things virtually these days, very much so. And sort of kind of just got used to that. But no, we haven't got anything planned in terms of any sort of concerts or theatre trips. Just one more thing on the Bond thing. When we go to Phuket, they've got the bit in Phuket called James Bond Island. So if you've seen The Man with the Golden Gun, Christopher Lee, the bit where they have the duel on the beach, there's a sort of famous picture of them like standing back to back, and there's like a sort of very well-known like sort of rock formation sort of sticking out of the sea, and you can do day trips to that, which are very popular. But that's the problem. It's just like hordes and hordes of tourists. And so, like, it's like, is it really worth doing that just to try and get the photo when, like, you've got sort of just loads and loads of people milling around? Or do you, like, pay a fortune to, like, go on a sort of early solo trip and all the rest of it? And we, in the end, we just thought, can't be bothered, you know, just, for all the hassle it's going to cause us having to get up early just to sort of do, like, the Instagram shot. We're just like, no, can't be bothered. It's sort of like, we could live without it, yeah. So,
Man with the Golden Gun, my favourite James Bond theme tune.
It's a funny one because it's kind of like a sort of, it's kind of very sort of staccato. It's like all that kind of business. I think probably mine is still probably Nobody Does It Better. But again, we're getting into sort of my area of things. So we're getting back to like, you know, Tom Baker, Doctor Who, and it's Roger Moore, James Bond. And we had the dinky Lotus. To quote Tropy, I've still got a little dinky, yes, or Eric Morecambe. And it was funny when we were going back again, actually, when we were going back to clearing the loft out, we found this little dinky Lotus that fired the missiles and stuff. And like, I was like, oh, that's nice. And my brother's like, no, that's mine. Oh, no. And he was like, no, he was adamant. He pulled rank. He said, no, I'm having that. I was like, all right. And this is someone who actually does drive like a nice sports car, but like he had such fond memories of this little rusted, battered up, dinky Lotus. He's like, no, that's mine. Yeah. It's like the other one that I'll finish on as well is we used to have the dinky Star Trek Enterprise that you'd twist the thing and had the photon torpedoes, and had the little transporter, little sort of shuttle that came out the bottom as well. Yeah. But like the sort of middle bit of like the Space 99 Eagles, they always disappeared. But we had one of these, but then my dad, he basically gave it to a kid like long after we'd left home and stuff. My brother was absolutely gutted. But that was mine. That was my Starship Enterprise. So like a few years ago, thanks to the wonders of eBay, I got him another one. And now in his office, like on the shelf that I've got behind me, sits his Star Trek Enterprise. So there we go. It sort of it all comes back to memories and things. And talking of memories, I've got to I'm getting into trophy territory. I've got to do some polishing this afternoon. I've not even been drinking yet, so wait till we do a drunk chat.
Yeah, a good buff.
Yeah, buff. Yeah, I'll get Angelique to help. Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, let's do a drunken chatterbox at some point. Anyway, God, turning into Ronnie Corbett. Well, the producer said to me, yes, I was just cleaning the birdcage out. I fell in. Yeah. So I've got to polish. I've bought some Brasso, and Brasso is one of those things. As soon as you smell it, you get this Proustian rush. And it just reminds me of like the candelabra that we had on the sideboard, which was like the one and only centerpiece sort of thing we had in our dining room that sort of my mother was very proud of. And as soon as you sniff the Brasso, it's like, oh wow, that takes me back. So yes. So yeah, anyway, I better get back to buttering up my chicken.
Yeah.
God, oh dear. Don't let me do a chatterbox with Troby, because you might end up having to censor quite a lot of it, I think.
I know. I've got the explicit buttons for.
Yeah.
There should be a double on top. On Libsyn, there used to be clean, sort of explicit, and in the middle, and they got rid of that. So you have to either be clean or explicit. And our show can kind of. I don't like the word explicit though, because it should be double entendre instead.
Yeah, and I like it when double entendre is used, kind of like seasoning. I suppose this is like this is the writer in me speaking here. That like if you're writing like a play or a sketch or something, you don't want to just fill it with like effing and jeffing and stuff. But sometimes you need that sort of, you need to make it a bit more punchy. So like, so maybe there needs a certain button like clean, explicit, and just Troby. It's like special sort of thing. One more thing, sort of going back to Anglo-French relations, is that although Angelique's English is like 99% perfect, sometimes she sort of misses stuff. So like just the other day, for example, I had to explain what bingo wings were.
Yeah.
And sometimes like some Cockney rhyming slang. So like, oh, I chucked him in Ayrton. It's like, what? What's that? Ayrton Senna, Tenor, Solar. Yeah, it's a learning experience. So, anyways, right, the kitchen beckons. So I bid you farewell, kind sir. It's been lovely to talk to you. Finally. And we'll speak soon.
Yes. Take care. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, what a lovely guy. That was a great chat, Paul. You did a good job. Well, we both did a good job. It's a conversation. It's not a one-way thing. Oh, sorry, Paul. Yes. I did enjoy it. I hope I get to meet him next time. Yes, I'm sure you will. Yes, I'd like that. Yes, he mentioned me, which shows a great amount of taste on his part. I think it does. He does have a lot of taste. Yes. So, are there any Sutton Park clips this episode, Paul? No Sutton Park clips. No, there's no need for them. Not this time. I don't want to, muddy the waters with quizzes or Sutton Park clips. I think, we've just had a lovely conversation with Muffley on tour, and that is enough. And now it's time to say goodbye. It's the end of the show. Oh, right. Goodness, how time has flown. Time has flown, yes. But it is time to say goodbye. Well, there you go. Is there anything else you want to say before we leave? Well, I guess it wouldn't hurt to share with you one final piece of music by Muffley on tour. This one's called Flight 2. Flight 2. Yes. It's quite different from Flight 1. That is always very exciting to hear. Yes. I'm sorry, guys. Are you still cross with me? Cross with you? No. I'm not cross with you. No, I'm not cross with you either, Paul. A little bit miffed, but not cross. Okay, well, listeners, before we go, so this is Flight 2 by Muffley on tour, which he has composed for a video project coming soon. But anyway, we get to hear it here first. Have a listen. Well, listeners, that's all we've got time for. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. And I think you'll agree we have had a very special guest, and one that's far more interesting than Henry VIII. So, yes. Muffley, you can have that as a quote for any future projects. The one good thing I'll say about Muffley, well, one of the many good things I'll say about Muffley that which rises him in my estimations above Henry VIII is that he never tried to have anyone beheaded or anything like that. Well, not to my knowledge anyway. No, I don't think he would do. He's far too nice to be doing that sort of thing. Anyway, it's nice to know that one's listeners, don't behave so barbarically. Anyway, right, where was I? Right, yes, it's time to go. So, take care. Muffley will be back in the future, whether in voice or in music. But, expect to hear from him soon, and you'll hear from me even sooner. So, you take care, and I'll say goodbye for now. All right, bye for now. Bye-bye. I can't believe the way he treated us today, Yeti Uncle John. Yes, well, I think you're right. It was quite disrespectful. Yes, I mean, well, we were giving him our ideas, and he poo-pooed them. Yes, he did poo-poo them, didn't he? Still, I mean, it may not have been Henry VIII, the guest, but that Muffley on tour, he's all right. He said very nice things about me. Oh, so that makes it okay, does it? Come on, Cromitty, you can't blame Muffley on tour. It wasn't his fault. It's Paul we should be cross with. Muffley was a perfect guest. It was Paul that kept us from him as well. I know I would have liked to have spoken to him. Well, maybe next time.
What are you talking about, guys?
Oh, we're talking about Paul was recording earlier with Muffley on tour, and he never told us and let us sleep.
Oh, Muffley on tour. Oh, yes. I spoke to him. Lovely guy. Lovely guy.
You what? You spoke to Muffley on tour? I can't believe it. What were you doing? I mean, why were you in the house when Paul was talking with Muffley?
Oh, I just came by. I had some post only delivered to my ship. Went for Paul. I just popped it in. Paul was talking to Muffley. I said hi.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe that it just gets worse. I know, I feel snubbed.
Oh dear, guys. Oh dear, oh dear.
Yes, oh dear, oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear. Well, I'm speechless.
It's probably a good time for that. I can hear the theme music playing.
Oh yes, so can I. Yes, me too. Oh well.
Yes. Get over it, guys. Get over it.
Oh dear, oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear.
I gotta go now.
I don't care.
Bye.
I wasn't done with you.
Gotta go. Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye.
This show is part of the Pride 48 network. Find more shows over at pride48.com.
Oh dear, what's going on now?
Oh, it's the Shy Life podcast. Let's go.
I have a voice. I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice. We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
So, darling, how did it go?
What, my chat with Muffley? Very well, very well. We recorded nice and early. You know, it was just easier when nobody was up and about. This flat is so small and there's always the potential for clattering.
Oh, yes, darling, clattering. Yes, I've heard clattering on your show before now.
Yes, we have had clattering in the background. If not clattering with pots and pans, then the boiler starts to make a noise or trains start running by outside. It's difficult to get a quiet time in this flat.
Oh, yes, darling. Well, it's nice to hear it was plain sailing.
Yes, it was plain sailing. The actual talking with Muffley, it went well, it was fine. But I think I might have offended Yeti Uncle John and Cromitty.
Oh, darling, I heard something from Ick. Oh, Ick told them to get over it.
Oh, yes, I heard about that. I neglected to mention that Ick did actually get to speak to Muffley. Yeah. And just briefly, and Cromitty and Yeti Uncle John were already cross at missing out. And now they think that Ick was somehow involved in some long chat, which he wasn't. Oh, dear, oh dear.
Oh, darling, I wouldn't worry about it. They were fast asleep. You can't be involved in every interview you do.
I know, but Muffley said some very nice things about Yeti Uncle John before now, and I think Cromitty's quite a fan of his music, and I said that they can speak to him another time. I didn't mean to upset them, but it seems I have.
Darling, as Ick said, time for them to get over it.
Yes, I think it probably is, but I don't know. Those guys...
Oh, darling, those guys. Never mind. They'll live.
Yes, I think they will. Anyway, there'll be other chances.
Of course, darling, of course.
I've heard that Paul's extremely nimble.
You know, sometimes I just really wonder about this show. I really do. This is just the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
546, 546, 546, 546, 546, 546,
No, I think that was a wonderful episode.
Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye.